Okay, so I'd like to take a moment to show you how to find those different settings that we talked about in our video on your DSLR. So a quick reminder that if you're in the fully automatic settings, like that green auto or even portrait mode, landscape mode, macro mode, those aren't going to let you adjust exposure compensation, white balance, or ISO. So if you go up to P, that means programmed auto. So the camera is going to do most of the work for you, but you can adjust those things. So up here on my Canon camera, I have a button that says ISO. So your camera may be different, but if I just push that button, all I have to do is I can go down. A means automatic, so I'm telling the camera to choose. But if I go up one, it's 100, which is my lowest ISO setting. And generally, all things considered, if you have a good amount of light, keep it on 100. That's your best setting. So, but if you're in a low light situation, you can, oh, I gotta push it again. There we go. You can move it higher. So I can go all the way up to 6400 on this camera, but that's gonna give me grain. So I'm gonna see those kind of color pixels and get that noisy texture, which I don't want. So usually what I would do is I would, if it was pretty dark, I'd boost it maybe a couple ISO stops, try it out, and then if I need more, I'd boost some more. So I'll keep it on 400 for now. But if I want to adjust white balance, for me, that's in my menu. So for me, it's in the same place as the exposure compensation. So I'm going to go down to white balance. Sometimes on newer DSLRs, it'll show up in the touchscreen and you can just touch it. But basically you need to find the area that will allow you to adjust white balance. So mine is set on auto, which again is a good default for white balance. Auto is not a good default for ISO, but it is for white balance. But if I find I want a different kind of white balance, if it's too yellow or my photo's too yellow or too blue, then I can pick these ones. And you notice that it's telling you what the Kelvin temperature of the light is. So if you're aware of that, then you can even dial in the Kelvin, and that'll give you a more specific white balance if that's something you want to do. But you can play around with that. But for now, I'm going to leave it on auto white balance. And then if I go up, that's where my exposure compensation is. So if I move that around, I can tell putting it on 0 means I'm telling the camera, you take the exposure you think it needs. If I move it lower, I'm saying I want a lower exposure. If I move it higher, I'm saying I want a higher exposure. And so if you're bracketing, essentially you can just go in and adjust each one and it's fine. But often on a DSLR, there's an option called auto exposure bracketing. So if I move this dial, you'll find that I get a new grid down here. So this is telling me that I want a main picture that is kind of 0 on that, what the camera thinks is the right exposure. But then I also want to take 2 more pictures, one that is 1 stop lower and one that is 1 stop higher. The key thing is that I'm telling my camera I want 3 pictures, so I need to remember to take 3 pictures. So if I set that and then I look through and I take 1, 2, 3. And then if I look through those pictures, that last one was the bright one. The one before that was kind of dark. And the one before that was right in the middle. And if I actually look at these, I actually like the darkest one the best because it shows off the texture of the raccoon the best. And since he is my subject and I want to see him illuminated well, I'm actually going to pick that picture, even though my camera is telling me that's an underexposed picture. But I'm saying that's showing my subject the best. And ultimately, you need to control that and decide what is the best exposure. So that's those settings on the DSLR.